Every morning, just before sunrise, a bell rang somewhere beyond the eastern mountains. Nobody had ever seen the bell. Nobody knew who rang it. Yet every morning, when that single note traveled across the valley, people left their beds, opened their doors, and began to run. Some ran barefoot, some carried walking sticks, some carried bags of food, some carried maps drawn by fathers, grandfathers, and men who had died, still searching. The old said the bell led to peace. The young said it led to greatness. The poor said it led to wealth. The lonely said it led to love. The sick said it led to healing. Nobody agreed on what waited at the end. They agreed only on one thing: if you reached the bell, your real life would finally begin. In the village of Arin, children learned to run before they learned to read. Parents measured their sons and daughters by how quickly they rose when the bell rang. A lazy child was not one who refused work. A lazy child was one who stayed sitting after the sound faded. Every house had a pair of running shoes beside the door. Every family had a story of someone who had almost reached it. Almost was the sacred word of the valley. My uncle heard it louder near the river. My sister saw a golden light behind the ridge. My grandfather found a path no one had tried before. The stories changed with every telling, but the hunger behind them stayed the same. Arin first chased the bell when he was 9. His mother tied his shoes, while the sky was still dark. His father knelt beside him and placed both hands on his shoulders. Do not stop too early, his father said. How will I know when I am close? Arin asked. His father smiled. You will feel it. That was the answer adults gave when they did not know. The bell rang. The village exploded into motion. Doors opened. Dogs barked. Men and women rushed toward the mountain road. Arin ran with them, laughing at first, proud that his legs were finally part of the great movement. But after an hour, his chest burned. After two, his feet hurt. By noon, he could no longer hear the bell. Only people, panting, cursing, calling out directions, arguing over which path was best. His father pulled him forward. Keep going. I can't hear it anymore, Arin said. That means we must go faster. By sunset, they returned home with dust in their hair and failure in their throats. His mother placed soup before them. His father said, Tomorrow. That was the second sacred word of the valley. Tomorrow. Years passed. Arin grew tall, quick, and restless. He became one of the fastest runners in Oran. At 16, he could reach the old bridge before most men had crossed the first field. At 20, he led groups deep into the eastern hills. At 25, people began asking his opinion about routes. He drew maps. He studied echoes. He marked winds. He learned which rocks carried sound, which forests swallowed it, and which valleys confused the ear. He did not think of himself as obsessed. Obsessed was what people called someone else's devotion. Arin called it purpose. One morning, while climbing a narrow path above the river, he met an old traveler sitting beneath a dead cedar tree. The man wore a torn brown coat and shoes, patched so many times they looked assembled from different lives. He was not running. He was eating an apple. This irritated Arin. The bell had rung less than an hour ago. The sound was still floating in the air, and this man was sitting. Are you injured? Arin asked. The old man looked up. No. Then why aren't you running? The old man smiled. I did. When? For 40 years. Arin almost laughed. Did you find it? I found many things. That is not what I asked. No, the old man said. It is what I answered. Arin looked down the path. His group was getting ahead. The old man took another bite of the apple. My teacher used to say, there are two things that call to a person. One is pleasant. One is truly good. Most people hear the first and think it is the second. Arin frowned. What does that have to do with the bell? Perhaps nothing. Then why say it? Because young men remember strange sentences after they forget useful advice. Arin shook his head and ran on. For the next 10 years, he chased the bell harder than anyone in the valley. He married a woman named Mira, who loved him before she understood that a man can be present in the room and still be chasing something far away. She would wake before dawn and find him already standing at the door, shoes tied, water packed, eyes fixed toward the mountains. Stay today, she once said. The roof is leaking. I'll fix it tonight. You said that yesterday. I was closer yesterday. You always are. He kissed her forehead, not because he was careless, but because he truly believed he would return as the man she deserved. After the bell, after the discovery, after the life that was waiting beyond the next ridge. Their son, Nilan, was born during a week of heavy rain. For 3 mornings, the bell could barely be heard through the storm. On the fourth, the sky cleared. Arin stood at the door. Mira sat in bed holding the child. You are going today? She asked. He turned back, only for a moment. I have to. No, she said softly. You want to. He looked hurt. That is unfair. Maybe. The bell rang. Nilan cried. Arin went. As his fame grew, people from other villages came to follow him. He became known as the man who understood the bell better than anyone alive. He could predict where it would sound louder. He could stand in a valley, close his eyes, and tell whether the sound had bent from stone or traveled through water. Merchants offered him money for maps. Young runners offered loyalty. The Council of Arin built him a larger house near the mountain road. Mira moved into it quietly. Nilan grew up in rooms filled with maps of places his father had not reached. When Arin returned from long searches, the boy would run to him with questions. Did you see it? Almost. Was it loud? Louder than before? Will you take me next time? When you are ready. When will I be ready? When your legs stop asking that question. Nilan tried to understand. Children are generous with mysterious fathers. They turn absence into greatness because the other option is too painful. One summer, Arin led the largest expedition the valley had ever seen. 300 people, 20 horses, 6 carts of supplies. They planned to cross the eastern mountains completely and search the lands beyond. Mira stood outside the house while villagers cheered. Nilan, now 12, begged to go. Arin looked at his son for a long time, then he said, Not this time. Nilan's face changed. Only slightly, but enough. Arin saw it. Then the bell rang. The crowd moved, and like many fathers before him, Arin chose the distant sound over the quiet wound in front of him. The expedition lasted 4 months. They crossed ridges no one from Arin had crossed. They found empty shrines, abandoned roads, and a lake so still it reflected stars at noon. They heard the bell in strange places, sometimes ahead, sometimes behind, sometimes beneath them, as if the earth itself were ringing. People argued. Some turned back. Some accused Arin of leading them in circles. One man died after slipping on wet stone. Another vanished during fog and was never found. By the time the expedition returned, the valley celebrated them as heroes. Arin smiled for the crowd, but in private, he could no longer sleep. The bell had become clearer and more confusing, closer and more impossible. The more he learned, the less certain he became. This is how desire matures. At first it says, Come closer. Later it says, You are close because you still suffer. Arin began to hear the bell even at night, sometimes while eating, sometimes while Mira spoke, sometimes while Nilan sat across from him, waiting for a father who kept disappearing behind his own eyes. One evening, Nilan placed a small wooden horse on the table. I made this, he said. Arin looked at it quickly. Good. Do you like it? Yes. You didn't really look. Arin looked again. The horse was rough but careful. One leg was shorter than the others. The eyes were uneven. A child's love lived in every mistake. It's very good, Arin said. Nilan took it back. No, it isn't. Before Arin could answer, the boy left. Mira watched from the doorway. He is learning from you, she said. I never taught him to carve. No, you taught him that nothing here is enough. The sentence struck him, but not deeply enough. Some truths arrive before a person has become honest enough to receive them. The years continued. Arin's hair grayed at the temples. Mira's laughter became rarer. Nilan grew taller, quieter, and eventually faster than his father. On the morning Nilan finally joined the runners, Arin expected pride. Instead, he felt fear. His son ran beautifully, too beautifully. He ran with the hunger of someone trying to prove he had not been abandoned for nothing. Within months, villagers began whispering that Nilan might be the one to reach the bell. The phrase should have pleased Arin. It did not. A father can survive his own failure more easily than his child's mirror. One dawn, father and son ran together along the northern ridge. The bell sounded unusually clear. Nilan pulled ahead. Arin called after him. Slow down. The echo is tricky here. Nilan did not stop. I can hear it. You think you can? I said I can hear it. The path narrowed. Loose stones rolled beneath their feet. Nilan moved faster. Arin felt anger rise, but underneath it was terror. Nilan, the boy turned back, only for a second. His foot slipped. The fall was not dramatic. No scream across the valley. No long tumble. Just one wrong step. One body striking stone. One sound a father would hear for the rest of his life. Nilan survived, but his right leg never healed properly. He could walk, slowly, with pain. He would never run again. After that, the house became silent in a new way, not peaceful. Silence can be crowded. Mira did not blame Arin. This almost made it worse. Nilan did not blame him either. That made it unbearable. For weeks, Arin stayed home. People praised him for it. They called it devotion. They did not understand that guilt can imitate love. Every morning, the bell rang. Every morning, Arin sat beside Nilan's bed and did not move. At first, this felt like punishment, then like discipline, then like a strange kind of listening. He noticed the sound of water boiling, the scrape of Mira's chair, the way sunlight entered the room slowly, touching the floor before touching the wall. He noticed Nilan's face when he tried to hide pain. He noticed how much of life he had treated as waiting. One morning, months after the accident, Nilan said, Go. Arin looked up. What? The bell rang. Go. No. You want to. That doesn't matter. Nilan studied him. You always told me it did. Arin had no answer. The next day, the old traveler returned. Arin saw him near the dead cedar tree outside the village, walking with the same patched shoes and the same impossible calm. He was older now, or perhaps Arin had become old enough to notice. You, Arin said. The traveler smiled. You remembered. You said there are two things that call to a person. Yes. One pleasant, one truly good. Yes. Which one is the bell? The traveler looked toward the mountains. That depends on why you run. Arin almost laughed. I have spent my life chasing it. No, the traveler said. You spent your life chasing what you thought it would give you. The words angered him. Do you know where it is? The traveler nodded. Arin stopped breathing. You know? Yes. And you never told anyone. I have told many. What did you say? The traveler pointed toward the valley. Sit. Arin stared at him. That is not an answer. It is the only path you have not tried. The old man walked away before Arin could speak again. For many days, Arin hated him. Then winter came. Snow blocked the mountain paths. The runners became fewer, then almost none. Still, the bell rang, fainter now, softer. One morning, while the village slept under a white sky, Arin woke before dawn and walked alone to the hillside above his house, not to run, not to search, only to listen. The air was cold enough to hurt. The valley lay below him, quiet and grey. Far away, the mountains waited. The bell rang, one note, pure, lonely. Arin closed his eyes. For the first time, he did not move toward it. The sound traveled across the valley. It struck the eastern cliffs, returned softer, touched the river stones, returned thinner, passed through pine forests, returned changed. Then something inside him became still, not peaceful, clear. The bell was not moving, the sound was. And the people were chasing the sound as it changed around them. Every runner thought the bell was ahead because every runner was moving. Every valley bent the note. Every mountain returned it differently. Every desire gave the same sound a new direction. The bell had never promised anything, it had only rung. They had supplied the meaning, they had supplied the hunger, they had supplied the story that life began somewhere else. Arin opened his eyes. The sun had touched the roofs of Oren. Smoke rose from chimneys. A woman carried water. A child chased a dog. Someone laughed in the distance. The world had been here the whole time, not perfect, not complete, not free from pain. But here, that evening, Arin entered Nilan's room carrying the small wooden horse from years before. He had found it in a box beneath old maps. One leg was still shorter than the others. Nilan looked at it. I thought you threw that away. No, you kept it. I kept many things badly. Nilan took the horse and turned it in his hands. After a while, Arin said, I am sorry. Nilan did not look at him. For what? Arin felt the old habit rise. To explain, to defend, to say he had done it for them, to say every man in the valley chased the bell. Instead, he let the truth stand without decoration, for teaching you that life was somewhere else. Nilan's jaw tightened, then softened. Outside, Mira paused near the doorway but did not enter. The next morning, the bell rang. Arin did not run. Some villagers noticed. By noon, half of Oran had heard. By evening, people came to his house. Are you ill? No. Have you given up? No. Did you find it? Arin looked at their faces, hopeful, afraid, angry that someone might have escaped a hunger they still needed. I heard it, he said. We all hear it. No, Arin said. Most of us hear ourselves running. This answer displeased them. People do not forgive easily those who stop worshipping what they still chase. His maps lost value. His followers found other leaders. Children stopped pointing at his house. Some called him broken, some called him selfish. Some said grief had weakened him. Arin listened, then returned to his work. He repaired the roof. He sat with Mira in the evenings. He helped Nilan build small wooden toys that children from the village began buying at the market. At first he was clumsy. A man who has chased distant sounds for 40 years does not immediately learn the art of staying. He burned soup. He overwatered plants. He interrupted too often. He apologized badly. Then better. There were mornings when the bell rang, and his whole body wanted to move. The desire did not disappear. This surprised him. He had expected revelation to end hunger. It did not. It only showed hunger its proper size. One spring morning, Arin returned to the hillside, where he had first understood. Nilan walked beside him with a cane. Slowly, the bell rang. They stood in silence. After the sound faded, Nilan asked, Do you ever miss running? Yes. Do you regret it? Running? All of it. Arin watched the valley wake. I regret what I abandoned while running. Nilan nodded. Then he said, I used to think if I reached the bell, I would finally become someone you could see. Arin closed his eyes. Some sentences take a lifetime to deserve. When he opened them, his son was looking at the mountains, not accusing, just telling the truth. I see you now, Arin said. Nilan gave a small smile. You are late. Yes, but not too late. For a while they stood together, father and son, one who had run too long, one who could no longer run, both listening to a bell that had never lied. Years later, when Arin was old, children came to him with the same question he had once asked others. Where is the bell? He would point to the mountains. There. They would lean forward. Can we reach it? He would smile. You can reach many things. But the bell? He would take a wooden toy from his table, usually a horse with one leg slightly shorter than the others. Then he would say, before you chase anything, ask what you believe it will give you. The children rarely understood. That did not trouble him. Young people remember strange sentences after they forget useful advice. On the last morning of his life, Arin woke before sunrise. Mira was gone by then. Nilan had grown old himself. The village had changed. There were new roads, new houses, new runners, new maps. The bell still rang. Of course it did. Arin sat by the window wrapped in a blanket. Nilan sat beside him. The first light touched the eastern mountains. Then came the sound. One clear note. Nilan whispered, Do you hear it? Arin nodded. Is it still beautiful? Yes. Does it still call you? Arin smiled. Yes. Then what changed? Arin looked at the village, smoke lifting, doors opening, people beginning another day. What changed, he said, is that I no longer believe I must leave my life to answer it. The bell faded. This time Arin did not follow. He simply listened until the silence returned. And in that silence, for the first time, the valley sounded complete. Ancient wisdom applied. This story is not really about a bell. It is about the feeling that life is always waiting somewhere ahead. After one more achievement, after one more promotion, after one more relationship, after one more number in the bank, after one more version of yourself finally becomes perfect. The bell is desire, not ordinary desire, like wanting food when hungry or rest when tired. The bell represents the deeper belief that happiness exists somewhere outside the present life, and that if you can only reach it, everything inside you will finally become quiet. Ancient Indian wisdom explored this pattern with great precision. One of the clearest teachings appears in the Katha Upanishad. In that text, a young seeker is told that two paths approach every human being. One is the pleasant, the other is the truly good. The wise examine both and choose what leads to lasting freedom. The unwise, chasing comfort and attraction, choose the pleasant again and again. This is not a rejection of joy. It is a warning about confusion. The pleasant is not always wrong, but when the pleasant is mistaken for the ultimate answer, it becomes a trap. Arin's problem was not that he ran. Running gave him strength, discipline, skill, purpose. His problem was that he believed the bell would complete him. He did not chase a sound. He chased the end of incompleteness. That is why nothing was enough. When he became respected, he still ran. When he became famous, he still ran. When he became a father, he still ran. Even love could not hold him, because desire had convinced him that real life was still ahead. The Bhagavad Gita describes this restlessness through the image of desire as something difficult to satisfy. One desire ends, another rises, one achievement is reached, another appears. A person may gain the object they wanted, but if the hunger underneath remains unchanged, the mind quickly creates a new distance. This is why modern life feels so much like Arin's Valley. People say, I will be happy when I earn more. Then the number changes. I will be happy when I move. Then the city changes. I will be happy when I find love. Then love becomes another place where fear and expectation appear. I will be happy when people respect me. Then respect creates the fear of losing respect. The bell keeps moving because the bell was never the object. It was the mind projecting completion onto the next thing. This does not mean ambition is bad. Indian wisdom is not asking people to become passive. The Gita does not tell Arjuna to abandon action. It tells him to act with clarity, courage, and steadiness. The problem begins when action becomes a bargain with inner emptiness. If I get this, then I will be enough. If I reach that, then I will be at peace. If others see me this way, then I can finally accept myself. That bargain never ends well. The world can give results. It cannot give permanent identity. It can give pleasure. It cannot permanently remove the restless habit of seeking. The turning point for Arin comes only when he stops running long enough to listen. The bell had not changed. His relationship to it changed. This is important. Freedom does not always mean the disappearance of desire. Sometimes it means seeing desire clearly enough that it stops ruling your life. Arin still hears the bell. He still finds it beautiful. But he no longer believes he must abandon his life to answer it. That is the difference between desire as movement and desire as bondage. In your own life, the bell may not sound like a bell. It may sound like a career goal, a person, a dream house, a follower count, a body type, a social status, a spiritual experience. Even the search for peace can become a bell if peace is always imagined as something that will arrive later. The question is not, should I stop wanting? The better question is, what am I asking this desire to give me? If the answer is practical, act, work, build, learn, love, try. But if the answer is, I want this to finally prove that I am complete, then pause. That is where ancient wisdom asks you to look more carefully. Because the life you are running from may already contain the very things you hope to find at the end of the chase: a son waiting at a table, a wife standing in a doorway, a morning that does not need to become useful before it becomes real, a silence that was never empty. The bell may still ring, let it ring. Just do not forget to ask whether you are following a call or only chasing an echo.